Welcome to the deep dive. You're here because you want to get a real handle on things without getting lost in the weeds, right?
hmm
Today, we're tackling something that's front and center in all our lives: relationships.
Yeah, big one.
We've got Rewire Your Brain for Love, creating vibrant relationships, using the science of mindfulness as our guide. Sounds ambitious, but our goal is straightforward.
Right.
We want to extract the key insights into how our brains are actually built for connection and how mindfulness can give us a leg up in creating healthier, happier relationships.
And what's immediately striking about this book is how it lays everything out. It's, in three clear sections, each with a specific job.
Okay.
First, it helps you get a handle on your current relationship habits by looking at, well, how your early experiences shaped your go-to reactions.
Right, those defaults.
And second, it gives you a basic understanding of the brain science behind how we connect.
The nuts and bolts.
Exactly. And finally, it empowers you to take charge to become, in their words, your own master electrician
Huh, I like that.
by boosting the relationship skills that really matter.
Let's dive right into that first part then. Understanding your current habits. It sounds like the book really emphasizes how those early years, especially with our parents, create these deeply ingrained patterns in our brains about how relationships work, often without us even realizing it.
Totally. So for you listening, maybe think about what your default mode is in a close relationship.
Yeah, what's your go-to?
Exactly. The book explores this through the idea of attachment styles.
Okay,
These are basically the patterns of how we connect with others based on those early interactions.
makes sense.
There's secure attachment, which develops when parents consistently meet a child's emotional needs, creating a feeling of safety.
The ideal, sort of.
Sort of, yeah.
Mm.
Then there's insecure attachment, which might show up as being anxious about getting close or, tending to avoid it altogether.
Okay.
And that often comes from inconsistent or unpredictable parenting. So as you reflect on your own patterns, do you tend to seek a lot of reassurance or maybe prefer more space?
And it's kind of eye-opening that the book mentions nearly half of adults in the U.S. have an insecure attachment style.
It is, yeah.
That's a lot of us potentially operating with some, well, less than ideal relationship blueprints.
It is. But the book is quick to say that having an insecure attachment style isn't like a fundamental flaw or pathology.
Okay, that's good to hear.
It's presented more as something we adapted to in our early environment. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, survival strategy, maybe.
Exactly. But as the example of Diane shows, these early strategies, while they might have helped us then, can cause real problems in our adult relationships.
Right.
Diane, the writer, she kept hitting roadblocks in finding lasting love, and her underlying need for constant approval, that feeling of never quite being enough.
Mm.
It went all the way back to a childhood strategy she used to get her parents' attention.
Wow.
So a key insight for you listening might be to consider if some of your current relationship struggles echo any old patterns of seeking approval or validation.
So those old survival skills can really trip us up later on. But here's the encouraging part, right? The book makes it clear that our brain's wiring isn't set in stone.
Absolutely not. That's the core message.
We actually have the power to make changes.
We do. The book touches on how babies' brains are actively building their relationship brain right from birth, like little sponges soaking up every experience of connection.
Yeah.
They're incredibly attuned to whether they feel safe. And that information forms the basis of their initial wiring for closeness. This really highlights how adaptable our brains are, throughout our lives.
Which leads to this idea of implicit memory. That sounds like a sneaky force in our relationship struggles. Can you break that down a bit?
Yeah, implicit memory. Think of it as your unconscious learning. It's how past emotional experiences can color your present feelings and behaviors without you even remembering the original event.
Okay, so it's not like a flashback necessarily.
Well, not necessarily, no. The book uses a great example. Imagine being scared by clowns as a kid.
Uh-oh.
Years later, on a first date at the circus, you might feel this unexplained anxiety, right?
Hmm.
And you might even misattribute it to your date.
Oh, right. Blame them.
When it's actually that deeply buried childhood fear being triggered. These ingrained feelings about safety and danger have a huge, often invisible impact on how we navigate relationships today.
So, have you ever felt a strong negative reaction to something in a relationship without quite knowing why?
Yes, absolutely.
That could be implicit memory at play.
It's like our past is always whispering in our ear, even when we don't recognize the voice.
Exactly. So, If our early wiring and these unconscious memories are shaping our relationships in ways we don't even know, what does the book suggest we can actually do about it?
Well, that sets the stage perfectly for the rest of the book.
Okay.
It dives into specific brain areas that are key players in our relationships and introduces mindfulness practices designed to help us essentially reprogram those areas for healthier connections.
Reprogramming, okay.
The good news is that by understanding these brain regions and actively using these practices, you can start to become more aware of those old patterns and consciously choose new ways of responding.
Okay, so we've got the groundwork. Early experiences shape us, often without us knowing, through these attachment styles and unconscious memories.
Mm,
But our brains are adaptable. Now, let's get into the practical stuff. How does our brain actually function when we're in a relationship?
right. The book introduces us to some key brain regions that, light up when we're interacting with others. First, there's the insula.
The insula.
Yeah, located deep inside your brain. Think of it as your gut feeling center. It
Oh.
processes body sensations like your heart racing or feeling tense, but it also helps you experience basic emotions.
Like anger, fear.
Exactly. And then it colors them in as social emotions like feeling disgusted or delighted by someone. It's where you feel those visceral reactions in social situations.
So that knot in your stomach when something feels off in a conversation?
Your insula is likely involved,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that gut feeling isn't just random. There's a brain center at work. What's next on our brain tour?
Next is the anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC.
ACC, got it.
Imagine this as your brain's relationship regulator.
Ooh, important job.
Very. It's a middleman between your thinking brain and your feeling brain. It helps you decide what's most important at any moment. Your own feelings, your environment, the people around you.
Kind of prioritizing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's crucial for managing emotions, recognizing what you're feeling, and even motivating you to connect with others.
Okay.
And interestingly, it contains special cells called von Economo neurons, or VNs.
The Ians.
Yeah, VNs, which are thought to be really important for empathy, for understanding what someone else is going through.
A relationship regulator that sounds essential for navigating the emotional roller coaster of relationships. And those VNs for empathy sound like a key part of what makes us social beings.
Definitely.
What's the third area we should know about?
The third is the orbitomedial prefrontal cortex, or OMPFC.
Okay, OMPFC. Bit of a mouthful.
It is. This is part of your frontal cortex, the area responsible for higher-level thinking and planning.
The CEO part of the brain.
Kind of.
Yeah.
The OMPFC has strong connections to those emotion centers we just talked about, like the amygdala and the ACC,
Right.
making it vital for processing social information and making good decisions in social situations.
Ah.
The book points out that if this area is damaged, people can become, well, tactless, impulsive, and struggle with social cues.
So think of it as your social navigation system.
That's a great way to put it, your internal etiquette guide.
So the OMPFC helps us understand and respond appropriately in social situations. Now, the book uses a kind of shorthand for these three areas, right?
Yes, exactly. To keep things simple, the book uses the term basal forebrain as a way to refer to the insula, ACC, and OMPFC collectively.
Okay.
While it's not one specific brain part, thinking of these three as a team can help you understand their combined role in your emotional and social life.
An integration team. I like that. It highlights that these areas work together, not in isolation.
Exactly. And the book then talks more broadly about this idea of brain integration, emphasizing that your emotional well-being really depends on having a brain where different parts are communicating and working together smoothly. It's about internal harmony.
And it specifically focuses on how the right and left sides of your brain need to work together in relationships, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. The book explains that your right brain is more involved in those raw feelings like anger and fear, and also in sensing danger and your overall body sensations.
The feeling side, maybe?
More or less. It tends to be more active when you're feeling stressed or threatened.
Yeah.
On the other hand, your left brain is more about language, putting your feelings into words.
The logic side.
Kind of, but also positive emotions, motivation, and your sense of purpose.
Okay, so not just logic.
No. So for healthy relationships, we need both sides talking to each other.
How does that actually look in everyday life?
Well, the book gives the example of noticing a feeling of fear that's often a right brain function, and then being able to say, I'm feeling scared. That involves your left brain.
Ah, labeling it.
Exactly. That connection between the two sides strengthens those neural pathways.
Hmm.
It's like the saying, what fires together wires together.
Yeah.
The more you consciously link those right brain feelings with left brain language, the stronger that connection becomes.
That makes perfect sense. Being able to articulate, I'm feeling anxious, is way more productive than just lashing out because of that anxiety.
For sure.
And the book also brings up mindfulness meditation in this context.
Yes. Research on people who practice mindfulness regularly has shown a tendency towards more activity in the left side of the brain.
Interesting.
This suggests that mindfulness can help shift the balance, making it easier to manage both positive and negative emotions and reducing the intensity of those fear-based reactions.
Okay, so understanding these key brain regions and the importance of them working together is the first step in this rewiring process.
Building that foundation.
Now, let's talk about what the book calls rewiring the alarm button, our body's automatic reactions.
Yeah, this part looks at how your physical state,
Yeah.
things like your heart rate, muscle tension, are deeply connected to how you experience and navigate relationships.
Okay.
It asks you to think about how your body reacts when you're in a tense conversation or feeling under pressure in a relationship.
Right. It's tough to have a calm discussion when your body is already in fight or flight mode.
Exactly. The book uses a vivid phrase, emotional hammerdings, to describe those knee-jerk reactions we have in relationships.
Like a doctor's reflex hammer.
Precisely. Just like that little hammer taps your knee and your leg kicks out automatically, certain triggers in relationships can set off automatic physical reactions before you've even had a chance to think. The benefit of learning to regulate these reactions is that you become better able to see relationship challenges as things to work through together, rather than immediate threats.
So you're less defensive.
Less defensive, more emotionally available. Yeah.
The example of Michelle, who felt intense physical anxiety before dates the sweaty palms, the racing thoughts really brought home how much our bodies are involved.
It does. And the book then brings in the evolutionary perspective, pointing out that for humans, being isolated or rejected has historically been a major danger.
Right. Safety in numbers.
Yeah. And interestingly, the brain networks that activate when you experience social rejection overlap with those that activate when you feel physical pain.
Wow, really?
Yeah. That really shows how deeply wired our need for connection is. So have you ever felt that emotional pain of rejection almost physically?
Definitely. That's a powerful connection. A broken heart, literally feeling like something's broken in your body. So how does the book explain these automatic alarm reactions?
It introduces Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory.
Polyvagal.
It just describes three main systems in your autonomic nervous system. The oldest is the dorsal vagal complex, which is linked to immobilization, that playing dead response.
Freeze response.
Kind of, yeah. Then there's the sympathetic nervous system, the well-known fight-or-flight response, your body's accelerator.
Got it.
And the most recent one, evolutionarily speaking, is the ventral vagal complex, or what the book calls the smart vagus.
The smart vagus. I like that.
Yeah, it acts like a brake and a volume control, allowing you to engage socially and connect with others.
So when you encounter a potential stressor in a relationship, your amygdala, that quick threat detector, assesses it. Is it safe, dangerous, or life-threatening, and then triggers a response through one of these systems.
Precisely. But the book stresses that when you're in those fight or flight or shutdown states, your ability to have a productive conversation goes way down.
Yeah, you can't really connect then.
Not really. The goal then is to cultivate a greater sense of safety in your body and brain so that these extreme reactions aren't your go-to during relationship stress.
Okay.
When you feel safer, that smart vagus can have more influence, helping you stay calm and connected.
And it talks about this positive cycle, this good loop that can be created.
Yes, when you perceive safety, your smart vagus kicks in, leading to softer facial expressions and a more relaxed tone of voice. This, in turn, signals safety to the other person, creating a positive feedback loop that strengthens connection.
That makes sense. You feel safe, they feel safe, things get better.
Exactly.
Now, how does mindfulness help in regulating these bodily alarms?
Well, the book highlights the role of the anterior insula, that gut feeling center we talked about,
Right.
in coloring those basic body sensations as social emotions. Mindfulness meditation, it argues, can actually help rewire both the insula and that smart vagus nerve.
Okay, how?
It mentions research showing that people who meditate tend to have a thicker anterior insula.
Thicker.
Yes, suggesting a greater awareness of their internal bodily states, more attunement.
And Michelle's experience with daily mindfulness meditation really illustrates this. She reported feeling calmer, more aware of her body.
More present.
more present in the moment, and better able to manage her reactions during disagreements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Her experience shows how consistent mindfulness practice can lead to real changes in your ability to manage your body's alarm system.
Right.
The book then introduces basic mindfulness meditation as the foundation for building these new pathways, and it emphasizes being kind to yourself during the learning process.
Self-compassion is key.
Definitely. It also addresses that common idea that meditation should always be this blissful experience.
That pressure.
Right. Explaining that your brain might initially crave those quick rewards, but the long-term benefits of meditation are significant, even if it doesn't always feel amazing right away.
Okay, so mindfulness helps us manage our body's initial stress response. What about when those alarms are triggered by fear itself? The next part is all about taming the fear response, right?
Yes. This section looks at the powerful role fear plays in our relationships. It starts by making a key point. Fear is often about what you think might happen in the future.
The anticipation.
It's exactly. Not necessarily about what's going on right now. The book uses the analogy of seeing a lion in the distance. You're not hurt yet, but your body starts preparing for potential danger.
That makes sense. Our minds tend to jump ahead and imagine the worst.
They do. And the book emphasizes how too much fear can be really damaging, stressing both your body and your brain, and actually shutting down those higher-level thinking centers you need for problem-solving and learning.
Right. You can't think clearly when you're terrified.
Precisely. It introduces the idea of the anxiety tiger.
The anxiety type.
Yeah, that persistent feeling of worry and dread, and how we often unintentionally feed it with avoidance behaviors, which actually makes the fear stronger.
Oh, interesting. Avoidance feeds it.
Yeah. Mindfulness, on the other hand, helps you become aware of when that anxiety is kicking in and choose not to engage in those old fear-driven reactions.
Rebecca's story about staying in an unsatisfying relationship for years out of fear of being alone really showed the powerful and often illogical grip of fear. The book calls those deep-seated emotional memories the unthought knowns.
Exactly. It's that underlying feeling that dictates your actions, even when your rational brain knows better.
Right.
So this section then introduces healthy circuit breakers for fear, practical ways to dial down that amygdala's alarm response.
Okay, circuit breakers. Let's hear about those. What tools does the book offer for taming fear?
Well, the first is delivering GABA to the amygdala.
GABA.
Yeah, GABA is a neurotransmitter that acts like a natural calming agent in your brain, like a chemical override switch for the alarm system.
Okay.
Your OMPFC, that social navigation part,
Right.
has a direct line for sending GABA to the amygdala, and mindfulness practice can actually strengthen those connections, making it easier to soothe your fear response.
It's like strengthening the brake line. A built-in chill pill for an overactive fear center. What's the next circuit breaker?
The second is upping your oxytocin.
The cuddle hormone.
That's the one. Oxytocin not only helps calm down the amygdala's fear response, but also seems to encourage the growth of those GABA-releasing connections we just talked about.
Oh, interesting synergy there.
Yeah. It's produced in a part of your brain called the paraventricular nucleus of the hypothalamus.
So, more oxytocin can help soothe our fear and strengthen our natural calming mechanisms. What's the third strategy?
The third is activating your parasympathetic nervous system.
The brake pedal again.
Exactly, that brake pedal of your nervous system that's the opposite of the fear-inducing fight-or-flight response. Activating the system promotes relaxation, recovery, and a state where you're more open to connection and calm.
So, consciously engaging our brake pedal can counteract that gas pedal of fear. What else can we do?
The book also mentions increasing brain integration as a longer-term approach.
Yeah.
When different areas of your brain are communicating effectively, you have more processing time between when you perceive a threat and how you react.
A little buffer zone.
Exactly. This allows your prefrontal cortex, the more rational part of your brain, to get involved instead of just having an immediate emotional reaction.
That makes sense. A well-connected brain has more options for responding. Now, the book touches on how anxious attachment styles can almost create an addiction to anxiety in relationships.
Yes, it uses the analogy of a slot machine effect.
Slot machine. How so?
Well, for someone with an anxious attachment style, the inconsistent availability of love and connection in their early life can create a pattern where anxiety-driven behaviors are sometimes rewarded with attention, making those behaviors feel almost addictive and hard to break. Intermittent reinforcement, basically.
Ah, right, like gambling.
Exactly. This is why someone like Rebecca might have initially felt a bit meh about a securely attached partner. The absence of that familiar anxiety felt unsettling.
Wow, it's a powerful way to see how our past can keep us stuck in unhealthy patterns. But the good news is, the book offers specific mindfulness exercises as tools for these circuit breakers.
Exactly. It lists things like meditation to strengthen those prefrontal cortex amygdala connections for GABA release,
Okay,
placing your hand on your heart or belly, and visualizing loved ones to boost oxytocin,
nice. Simple things.
and practicing relaxed breathing and body awareness to activate that parasympathetic system. These are practical steps you can take to start rewiring your fear responses.
Okay, we've learned how to regulate our body's initial alarms and how to tame our fear responses. Now, what about those lingering feelings, that emotional stuckness after a tough interaction? The next section talks about installing a dimmer switch, building emotional resilience.
Right. This part focuses on your ability to bounce back from emotional distress, rather than getting caught in cycles of rumination after negative
And
experiences.
bouncing back part is key.
It is. It points to research showing that more activity in your prefrontal cortex is linked to better emotional resilience after conflict. It's about having a flexible but firm way to manage your emotional state.
That image of a dimmer switch is perfect. Not turning the light off completely, but having control over the intensity.
Exactly.
The book suggests two main ways to boost emotional resilience: shifting towards the left side of your brain and bringing those lower brain reactions into your conscious awareness. Let's start with that left brain shift.
Okay. The book explains that when you put words to your emotions, you activate the left side of your brain, the language center.
Labeling again.
Yes. This shift from just feeling something raw to being able to identify and name it can actually reduce the intensity of the emotion and even boost your mood.
Huh.
It's about moving from just reacting to being able to understand what you're feeling.
Ron's story really illustrated this. He had a very limited vocabulary for his emotions, mostly just, I'm okay, or anger.
Right, not much nuance there.
He needed to develop that dimmer switch to better recognize and manage his feelings. And it seemed like his mother's way of dismissing emotions growing up played a big role in that.
It's exactly. Her well-intentioned but ultimately dismissive responses, "You're okay, no need to be upset," prevented Ron from learning to notice, label, and connect with his full range of emotions.
Which led to those sudden bursts of anger.
Right. The book also emphasizes that having a balance between the right and left sides of your brain is key, using the analogy of a rowboat.
Oh, yeah.
Too much focus on the left brain can mean getting lost in thoughts and missing those important bodily sensations and raw emotions. You need both oars in the water.
So it's not about becoming purely logical. It's about integrating both the feeling and the thinking parts of yourself.
Precisely.
The book offers a starting point for building your emotional vocabulary with those basic feeling-type words: mad, bad, sad, glad, scared.
The basics. Yeah.
But it also warns against slipping into thoughts and explanations. Instead of identifying the core feeling, I feel that you're wrong, isn't a feeling.
Right. That's a thought or judgment.
It's a thought. The key is to identify the underlying emotion, maybe it's sadness or anger in that case.
Exactly. The book even mentions a website, equi.org, fw.htm, as a resource for expanding your feelings vocabulary.
Oh, helpful.
Gail's experience of shutting down during disagreements and how simply naming her feeling, "I'm feeling anxious," helped her step back from that anxiety and return to the conversation in a more productive way, really shows the power of this simple act.
It wasn't just about communicating the feeling, it was about her own increased emotional resilience.
Yes, it changed her internal state first.
And the book provides a short noticing, labeling, experiencing emotions meditation to help you practice this skill.
It's similar to basic mindfulness, but with a focus on identifying the emotions and body sensations that come up.
Okay.
It encourages a gentle, non-judgmental awareness of what's happening inside you. And when your mind wanders into thoughts or judgments about those feelings, you gently bring your attention back to your breath.
Practice building that dimmer switch.
Exactly, allowing you to experience your emotions without being overwhelmed by them.
We've covered regulating our bodies, taming fear, and building emotional resilience. Now let's talk about having more choices in how we react in relationships.
Okay.
The next section is titled Grounded Electrical Outlets, Response Flexibility.
Right. This part looks at how we tend to have limited automatic reactions in emotionally charged situations.
Those knee-jerk responses again.
Yeah, comparing it to a lightning strike in a house that follows the same path of least resistance. Our past emotionally painful experiences can create similar deeply grooved pathways, leading to those familiar reactions like rage, tears, or withdrawal.
Julia's story about dating men she couldn't trust and abruptly ending relationships based on a gut feeling, even though her earlier relationships seemed okay,
Mm-hmm.
really highlights this kind of reactive pattern. There was a mismatch between her conscious understanding and her automatic behavior.
Exactly. So the book introduces the idea of response flexibility,
Response flexibility.
which is about having a wider range of choices in how you react, rather than being stuck in those old knee-jerk responses.
Hmm.
The key to this is creating a brief moment,
Draw pause.
even just a split second, to make a more conscious choice.
It's about hitting the pause button before reacting, but as that joke about the actor with only one line, "Hark, the cannon roars," illustrates, that pause can be incredibly hard to do when you're in the heat of the moment, even if you know it's a right thing to do.
That's right. It takes practice. And the book emphasizes, again, the importance of that well-functioning and integrated basal forebrain, that team of the insula, ACC, and OMPFC.
The integration team.
Exactly. For creating that pause. When these areas are communicating well, you have access to your body's signals, your emotions, your thoughts, your awareness, your sense of self.
All the data.
Yeah, allowing you to choose a more thoughtful response.
Yeah.
Early experiences of attuned communication and secure attachment help build those high-road neural pathways in the middle prefrontal areas that make pausing easier.
So, mindfulness practice acts like a lightning rod, as the book puts it, activating both those quick emotional responses and the more thoughtful processing, giving us the power to choose better reactions.
Exactly. Julie's experience with regular mindfulness meditation and practicing those little pauses throughout her day shows how this can work in real life.
Right.
The book then introduces the concept of the 6-second pause, or really any brief pause, using a chosen cue.
A cue. Like what?
It could be something external like your phone ringing,
Yeah.
or something internal like a physical sensation, maybe noticing your shoulders tense up.
Ah.
The
Yeah.
advice is to start practicing these pauses during less emotionally charged times to build the habit.
Don't start in the middle of a huge fight.
Probably not ideal, no. Build the muscle first so it's more readily available when those bigger triggers come up.
So it's like training. You don't start with the heaviest weight. You build up your ability to pause in smaller everyday situations first.
Precisely. By consciously building these little pauses into your day, you start to create new neural pathways that support a more flexible and mindful way of responding in your relationships.
We've learned how to manage our emotions in the moment and choose our responses more wisely. Now let's dig into understanding the roots of our patterns.
Okay, going deeper.
The next section is putting a work light in the attic. Insight self-knowing.
Right. This part emphasizes that once you have a foundation of emotional regulation, you can start to explore your internal attic, your attachment history, and past relationship experiences.
The attic. I like that metaphor.
Yeah. Understanding how did I get here
Yeah.
gives you a deeper capacity for healthier relationships in the present. It's about creating a safe space within yourself for that deeper exploration.
Thomas's story really illustrates this. He was successful on the outside, but emotionally guarded and dismissive. His story about himself lacked emotional depth and didn't really connect the dots between events, like a cluttered attic where you can't see what's really there.
That cluttered attic is a metaphor for those parts of your brain and your past that silently guide your behavior. The work light represents having a clear and coherent narrative of your own life.
A coherent story.
Exactly. This section then explores implicit memories again.
Back to those.
Yeah, those nonverbal recordings of emotional, behavioral, and sensory experiences that are formed when the part of your brain involved in conscious memory, the hippocampus, isn't fully online.
Like in very early childhood or during intense emotions.
Exactly. And these implicit memories, because they're nonverbal and often processed more on the right side of the brain, can really influence your current behavior without you consciously remembering the original events.
Right.
The book highlights that pretty much all your memories from before you were about 18 months old are implicit, heavily shaped by your interactions with your primary caregivers.
Wow. All of them.
Pretty much. And even up to around age 4 or 5, most of your memories are still implicit. These early experiences are crucial for your social and emotional development, but you have virtually no conscious recollection of them.
That's mind-boggling.
It is. The book also points out that implicit memories can be formed at other times when your conscious memory system is less active, like during periods of high stress or altered states of consciousness.
So these early nonverbal experiences create these deep-seated patterns. The book talks about how secure attachment, emotional well-being, and having a coherent personal story all feed into each other.
Right, they're interconnected. Developing that coherent story as an adult can actually support your well-being and help integrate your brain.
Integrate the brain. Okay.
That's right. Unresolved emotional experiences can lead to a kind of disconnection or disintegration in the brain where those memories get triggered and unconsciously affect your adult life. On the other hand, just reciting facts about your past without any emotional processing can also indicate a lack of integration.
Just the facts approach.
Yeah. Tuning into your own story, including the emotional parts, can reveal a lot about your self-understanding, what your brain needs for better integration, and what might be tripping you up in your relationships.
Like with Thomas.
In Thomas's case, his limited story hinted at a possible lack of emotional responsiveness from his parents and his learned strategy of avoiding his own emotions.
It's like those early protective mechanisms, while they might have been necessary for a child, can become major obstacles in adult relationships.
Exactly. Just trying to change surface behaviors without understanding that deeper emotional wiring is like just trimming the leaves of a weed. Lasting change requires that deeper look inside.
Makes sense.
Thomas's gradual insights during therapy, especially when he recognized his father's emotional distance by watching him with his own grandson, really shows that process of turning on the work light in the attic.
Yeah, that was powerful.
The book then offers some reflective questions to help you start exploring your own attic.
Oh, good. Practical steps.
Yeah. Questions about your family dynamics growing up, important people in your childhood and their relationships, any experiences of separation from your parents? What were the main emotions in your family? How were strong emotions handled? And how might those early relationships be influencing your current ones?
Lots to think about there.
It also shares how Thomas started to recognize his quiet babyhood, and conversations with friends revealed that his parents' lack of emotional engagement wasn't typical, leading him to acknowledge his childhood loneliness.
Wow, uncovering those hidden feelings.
Exactly. And to help with this internal exploration, the book introduces the body scan meditation
Okay.
as a way to improve communication between your body, brain, and mind. Your bodily sensations can actually hold clues to those old, implicit memories, offering a pathway to understanding them.
So listening to your body.
Yes, it guides you through the initial steps, getting comfortable, focusing on your breath, and then gently bringing your awareness to different parts of your body, noticing any sensations without judgment.
So this practice helps you become more attuned to the subtle language of your body, which can hold important information about your past experiences and those unconscious patterns.
Exactly. It's another way to turn on that work light.
We've explored understanding ourselves better. Now let's talk about understanding others.
Shifting focus.
The next section is acquiring a voltmeter, empathy.
Right. This part defines empathy as your ability to understand and share the feelings of someone else.
Seems straightforward, but...
But yeah, it clears up some common misunderstandings, emphasizing that empathy isn't about fixing someone's problems.
Right, not rescuing.
Or always agreeing with them or losing yourself in their experience.
It's about tuning in without getting overwhelmed. The book highlights 3 key parts of empathy: tuning in to others, the other person feeling understood, and the brain and body processes involved. Let's take a closer look.
Okay. First, tuning into others means really paying attention to both what they're saying and their nonverbal cues. Tone of voice, body language, facial expressions.
The whole picture.
Exactly. Second, feeling felt is that crucial experience the other person has when they sense that you genuinely understand what they're going through.
That aha, they get me moment.
Yes. And third, the brain and body processes refer to that feeling mirror effect,
Oh, yeah.
where you often unconsciously mimic other people's facial expressions and even have similar physiological responses when you connect emotionally.
Like yawning is contagious.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Yeah.
The book even mentions research showing that when people's facial muscles are temporarily paralyzed by Botox, they have more difficulty reading other people's emotions, highlighting how important our own body awareness is for understanding others.
Wow, that feeling mirror concept is fascinating. Our own bodies actually reflect what we're perceiving in others. So how does this tuning in and feeling empathy happen in our brains?
Well, the book discusses 2 main possibilities. The first is mirror neurons.
Mirror neurons, okay.
These are special brain cells that might fire both when you perform an action with intention and when you see someone else perform that same action.
Like watching someone eat ice cream.
Exactly. The idea is that this allows you to internally simulate what the other person is doing and intending, potentially even negative actions like seeing someone slam a briefcase.
Ah, so you kind of feel it yourself?
Potentially, yes. This information then goes to your gut feeling center, the insula,
Right.
which sends it to the emotion centers like the amygdala for a quick threat assessment, and then the middle prefrontal cortex processes it further.
Okay.
However, the book points out that these mirror neurons might learn from your own experiences.
Oh.
So if you've had negative experiences in the past, you might be more likely to interpret even neutral actions as threatening.
So our own history can actually shape how our mirror neurons react to others. What's the second brain possibility for empathy?
The second involves von economoneurons, or VENs.
The VNs again?
Yep. These seem to be active when you're distinguishing between your own feelings and someone else's, a capacity that's only really developed in certain social mammals like whales, dolphins, great apes.
And us.
And us. VNs are concentrated in the anterior insula and ACC, those relationship regulation centers. And they become active when you see others suffering. They might play a role in more complex social-emotional processing, including anticipating how others will feel and those quick gut feelings you get about people.
So both mirror neurons and VNs seem to be key players in our ability to connect with and understand other people's emotional states.
Seems likely, yeah.
The book then outlines 3 levels of empathy that are important for healthy relationships.
Yes. Level 1 is emotional contagion, that basic bodily ability to catch someone else's emotions.
Like feeling sad when your friend is sad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Level 2 is sympathetic concern, where you can understand why someone might be feeling a certain way and offer them comfort.
Going a step further.
And level 3 is empathic perspective taking, which involves actually trying to see the world from the other person's point of view, allowing you to offer more informed help without losing your own sense of self.
Okay, seeing through their eyes.
Right. The book emphasizes that all 3 levels are important for healthy relationships.
So it's not just about feeling what someone else feels, it's also about understanding their perspective and responding appropriately while still maintaining your own boundaries.
Exactly. And even though we have this specialized wiring for empathy, the book reminds us that we're also capable of other responses, like aggression and selfishness. It's not automatic.
Right, we have choices.
We do. So to actively cultivate empathy, the book introduces loving kindness, meditation.
Loving kindness.
Yeah. While it involves specific phrases, the core of the practice is the intention and the felt sense of warmth, kindness, and goodwill towards yourself and others.
The feeling behind the words.
Exactly. It encourages you to extend these feelings even when it feels difficult, emphasizing self-compassion and quoting Tara Brach on the power of simply being willing to cultivate these feelings.
So empathy isn't just something you're born with. It's a skill you can actively develop through practices like loving kindness meditation.
Precisely. It's about intentionally focusing your attention and your heart on feelings of compassion and understanding, both for yourself and for those around you.
We've explored self-awareness and empathy. Now, the final section shifts our focus outward to our interconnectedness.
Broadening the lens.
It's titled, We're All on the Same Power Grid. From Me to We Meditation. Interconnectedness.
Right. This part encourages you to look beyond a purely me-focused view and consider how interconnected we all are, how your choices ripple out and affect others.
Moving from me to we.
Exactly. It quotes John F. Kennedy's reminder about our shared planet and our common mortality. Justine's story really kicks this off.
Justine.
She was frustrated with dating and cynical about finding decent men, while also feeling a deep conflict about her high-powered lobbying job that often went against her own values.
Justine's situation really highlights that tension between her personal desire for connection and her professional life, which seemed to operate on a more individualistic, even cutthroat basis.
A real internal conflict. She even felt emotionally numb to the moral implications of her work, despite her own grandfather's disapproval.
Right, she justified it as legal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The book then discusses brain research on moral emotions, suggesting that our moral judgments often come from those quick, automatic emotional responses.
So gut reactions again.
Yeah, rather than slow, logical reasoning. Emotions tend to drive our moral decisions, and then our higher-level thinking kicks in to justify those feelings.
Interesting. Feelings first, justification later.
Often, yeah. It points out that feelings like gratitude and compassion, which involve considering others, require those more advanced brain areas for complex and abstract thought.
So making moral choices involves both our gut feelings and our more reasoned thinking.
It seems so. And the book emphasizes that having an integrated brain is key for making decisions that take into account the bigger picture and our interconnectedness.
Brain integration again.
Yep. It even quotes Daniel Siegel on how this integrated circuitry in our neural core underlies our sense of self, others, what's right, and our morality.
It also touches on that psychological need for creating distance between groups,
The us versus them.
which can lead to overemphasizing small differences and fostering prejudice. The book encourages you to think about how mindfulness can help you shift towards a broader sense of belonging, recognizing our shared humanity.
Right. It frames choosing to connect as an act of courage against a culture that often emphasizes complete independence.
Yeah, that rugged individualist myth.
And it challenges the idea of pure survival of the fittest, with evidence of cooperation and reciprocity in animals, suggesting our brains are actually wired for the greater good. The challenge is scaling that up.
Justine's journey really shows how becoming more aware of the impact of her actions and the conflict with her values led to some big positive changes.
It really did. The book highlights those key concepts, what wires together fires together, and how our daily experiences shape our neural connections in our relationship.
Right.
That moment when Justine, confronted with the idea that her anger was a mask for fear, finally paused, acknowledged those fears, and even turned off her BlackBerry felt like a real turning point.
Yeah, a moment of vulnerability.
It was. She recognized the emotional toll of her choices and over time started to align her actions with what she truly valued, which led to a more fulfilling life and healthier connections.
That's inspiring.
This section wraps up by introducing the interconnectedness with an apple meditation.
And at Apple.
Yeah, a beautiful way to experience firsthand how much we rely on a vast network of natural elements and human efforts. The sun, the rain, the farmer, the transporter.
Everything that went into that apple.
Exactly.
Well,
Prompting you to consider where you really begin and end within that web of connection.
it's a powerful way to shift from that me focus to a more inclusive we perspective. So we've explored understanding our wiring, rewiring our reactions, and recognizing our interconnectedness. What comes next? The final part.
Exactly. This last part is all about living with your new wiring, and it acknowledges that this is an ongoing process.
Not a destination, but a journey.
Right. The book uses the analogy of finding unexpected and sometimes messy electrical work when you're renovating a house
Huh. Been there.
to illustrate that as you become more mindful, you might uncover some surprising aspects of your own internal wiring.
That's a realistic way to look at it. It's not a quick fix. It's a continuous journey of discovery and growth.
For sure. The book addresses some common challenges you might encounter on this path, like the fear that things might change for the worse.
Or even fear success.
Or even the surprising fear of things actually getting better. Yeah.
Yeah.
It reassures you that change happens gradually. It's a personal journey with room for pauses and new directions.
Okay.
And it uses the image of tangled phone wires to remind you that your internal wiring is complex. And it's okay if rewiring feels a bit overwhelming at times. Be gentle with yourself.
It also touches on how your relationships might shift as you become more mindful.
Your partner might have unrealistic expectations of you being constantly zen.
Right, the perfect meditator.
Or you yourself might get a little overzealous about your new practices. The advice is to be patient, understanding, and to focus on your own growth first, keeping your eyes on your own mat
Good advice.
before trying to impose your new insights on others. It brings in the concept of the 3 jewels in traditional meditation,
Okay.
recognizing your inner potential, learning from others, and the support of community, highlighting how important it is to have sitting buddies or a supportive network to help sustain your practice.
That sense of community and shared intention sounds so vital for long-term growth and support.
It really is.
Yeah.
The book also acknowledges that as you change through mindfulness, it might affect your partner, potentially leading to feelings like jealousy or anxiety in them.
That makes sense. Change can be unsettling.
It can. It emphasizes the importance of open communication and finding a mindful balance between your new practices and your existing relationships.
The outro beautifully uses the extended image of you as a mountain experiencing the changing seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter, to illustrate the constant flow of life and emotions. It emphasizes your ability to sit grounded and fearless, taking it all in.
It's a lovely metaphor.
It concludes with a powerful quote from Ron Siegel, reminding you that a rich and meaningful life includes feeling the full spectrum of human emotions with empathy and experiencing everything fully.
Not shutting down.
Exactly. And that mindfulness can help you awaken to your full potential and appreciate your time here.
It's a powerful reminder that it's not about avoiding difficulties, but about how we relate to them.
Right. The book then points you towards resources for further exploration. including mindfulness meditation organizations, practice centers, and guidance on finding a qualified therapist.
Good practical next steps.
Yeah,
It also mentions the book's website for a more comprehensive list of research.
okay.
Ultimately, this deep dive into Rewire Your Brain for Love shows that you have the power to create healthier and more fulfilling relationships by understanding how your brain works and embracing the practice of mindfulness. It's an ongoing journey, but one that holds the potential for real and lasting transformation.
So as you continue to explore this in your own life, remember that you have the power to shape your connections. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.